Shots fired. Welcome to our Friday Flex.
Look, he's back.
I'm back.
He's back.
I'm back. I was in the motherland, and for those who have never,
Croatia?
not in this body,
Poland?
this was Africa.
Africa.
Yes, Africa. Yeah. So the trip was amazing. And if anybody has never been to Africa, I would suggest to go because it will open your eyes to a reality in which,
The microphones.
That's all right because they're dead. They're dead. They're dead.
Your dad's a comedian.
Yeah, Daddy got caught slipping. So we have a special guest here, as you saw in the background. My daughter is here, and she's just watching her uncle and her dad just do our Friday Flex series. Anyway, so if I have to step away for a second, it's to tend to E-Man. I want to make sure.
No, actually, if he has to step away for a second, that's because Iman is giving him a few words.
Yes, some words of encouragement. Let me see here.
She's using her voice.
I want to make sure this is. I don't know if this is live or not. It says live.
It says live. I do see that.
But I don't know if it's set to Bravado.
Oh, what about the comments? You
no,
know how
it's not.
sometimes there's like someone may ask a question or present something.
Yeah.
Are we able to see that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. So that's
Just want to make sure
That's
we don't
there.
miss that.
That's there. All right. All right. So after a few weeks away, I'm happy to start our Friday Flex again. So we're doing this. We're going to do about 8 to 10 part series on communication. So I think this is really important because most of the issues we have in society today are because we can't communicate properly, what to speak of effectively. And so there are 5 communication styles. There's probably a little bit more than that, but 5 basic communication styles. And we won't talk about detailed communication styles in this particular episode, but we'll go into that a little deeper. So you have passive communication style, passive aggressive communication style, aggressive communication style. Then you have manipulative communication style, and then you have assertive communication styles. But we'll, like I said, we'll go over that a little later in the other series. But our communication, when it involves our family, our friends, make sure you got the light gleaming.
Yeah, I just want to make sure my soul's glowing.
Make sure it's like,
that sheen.
Somebody should have to wear glasses when they look at your forehead. So, and all this
glow.
Spatial circumference. And so with family, friends, and in one's spiritual community, and also with one's loved one, one's partner, communication is the most important aspect. And I thought today would be really nice, since we have our special guest who is acting very, calm right now, any moment.
But she does use her voice.
She does, yes.
Although we may not be able to, properly understand, everything that comes out.
Yes. Exactly.
But she does use it.
She does use it. So one of the most important things when we're dealing with communication with others is to have, a level of grace, because sometimes we may not know how that person was raised, and
that's a big part.
And so if the person was raised a certain way and we expect them to kind of communicate like we do, then there's always, some type of obstacle or some type of barrier, or misunderstanding, or misgiving, one could say. But I thought, having my daughter here would be really nice to talk about the communication with children, with those individuals that can't speak, that don't really have a voice that we can understand. Now, of course, the more, hopefully if you're a present parent, then you can start to kind of understand certain things about your child and so forth, and understand when they're hungry or things like that. But for the most part, you're dealing with an individual who cannot articulate how they feel. And so because they can articulate this feeling, it's easy for a lot of parents who, even ones that are experienced or have some type of emotional intelligence, it's very difficult for them to kind of stay calm, because you're trying to understand somebody's cries. And so when you're dealing with something like that, if you don't necessarily know why, baby's crying, then you will just get frustrated. And it's easy to get frustrated when you don't understand. And because both individuals are looking at each other like, they're crying, I want to cry, because, we can't properly understand.
You're tired, she's tired, you're hungry, she's hungry.
So you have this kind of dynamic in which both are somewhat helpless. We're in a helpless situation. And unfortunately, in a lot of communities, you see that when the parent does not have the ability to put themselves in their child's shoes, they often become overly angry with a person or a being that cannot express themselves. And so oftentimes,
no thank you.
Oftentimes, the parent will yell at the child, and of course the child may get startled and may stop crying. But what is that doing to that child from an emotional standpoint, from a psychological standpoint? Further down the road, will that child only yell because that is the only way they can seem to get some type of attention? Or
that they will allow others to yell at them and possibly disrespect them because they think that may be a form of, this person actually cares about me, or that this person may love me, when in fact the person that is abusive, perhaps verbally, does not at all care about them.
And that's really a fine line, because when we think about bringing NLP into the equation, neuro-linguistic programming, we see that when someone attempts or reacts, that is them giving the best they got at that time. And so, yes, she took both the socks off. Wow. Okay. Way to go.
She's comfortable.
She's super comfortable.
I can tell she's smiling on
She
me.
is smiling, right?
Yep.
So, so when we have, when we're trying to do the best we can, sometimes the best we can is according to others, and may not be the best approach, but it's all we got. In the sense of, I was thinking about Star Trek. You're like, that's all she got, Captain. We're trying so hard, but because we don't have any communication tools, any emotional, intelligent tools, we're just lashing out, and we are responding in a low vibrational state. But it's the best we have. And so it's important as parents, future parents, or when we're interacting with children, is that we have to understand, like, if we're getting frustrated, how much of that is our low emotional intelligence? How much of that is our inability to put ourselves in, the child's shoes?
Yeah, I was thinking as you were saying that, not shooting any shots at anybody, but I'm just saying, just to point out that there are some individuals who are really good at, you can say, visualizing and seeing themselves in the other person's shoes, especially those individuals who have actually spent some time, you can say, in silence, either meditating or something, to kind of listening to themselves, because they can understand, okay, wow, I know what it feels like to be in a certain situation. I know what it feels like to not be heard.
Right.
So let me consider myself in the other person's shoes, like this. But then I was also thinking of those individuals who, in one sense, they have not stopped to look at themselves and see how they feel when they're in a certain situation where, again, there's a lack of communication or misunderstanding, and that, again, there are individuals, those same individuals, who are not even able to visualize themselves. And I was thinking of, not to go into too much detail, but I remember having a conversation with another person who deals with children in terms of just education-wise, in the school. And one child had tried to take something from another child, basically, and wanted to push and shove, right? So almost the start of a fight, basically.
Right.
Amongst two children. And that person, the teacher, when she spoke to those students, especially the one that was doing all the pushing and saying, this is mine or whatever like that, or sorry, the one that actually took the item from the other student, I should say, the offender, I guess if that would be the proper way of saying it, that when speaking to that person, ask them, because clearly that person didn't stop to think how it would feel if they were to take something from someone, for the other person. So ask them, how would you feel and how would you respond if someone took something from you? So I was, again, as you were speaking, I was thinking of those scenarios where there are individuals who just don't have the tools or skills or even, the whereabout in terms of how to think of themselves in someone else's shoes, but that if there's some outside source or another person, maybe obviously someone that does have the tools that can enlighten them and help them to think, like ask them the right questions so that they can think about how another person would feel if the same thing was happening to them directly.
And it's important, and to that point also, it's important to realize that, depending on the age, the child only has a couple emotions, like angry and at peace. So there's not so much variety in the emotions. I see how, sometimes like we were on the plane going to Africa, as long as Iman was fed and she was changed and she slept.
She started smiling at us.
And she slept, she was satisfied. But after that, it was if we were late on the milk, or if we didn't catch the cue yet, to put her, to hold her so that she feels safe to go to sleep,
right?
Then she's gonna let everybody know, and it's like from 0 to 100, like extremely quick. I think she may want some airtime. So let me bring our special guest on the stage.
Now, a word from our sponsors.
Now, a word from our sponsors. Yes. Come on.
She got the biggest smile on her face right now.
Let me Daddy got like face off you all.
Hey. Gonna smile at me and wink. What are you up to? Make sure it's warm water.
Well, it's not to be. There we go. All right. There we go. We got it. We got it together. Come on. Come on. There we go. We embrace everybody with your presence.
I'm gonna turn my phone off here. I just realized that it made a noise. There we are.
All right. So we got our special guest here. And Iman, say hello to everyone. This is she's dressed by Daddy today. And normally I don't so anyway, so this is our special guest. This is Iman. And I think she may be hungry. No? A little bit? So anyway, so one of as I was mentioning, there's only really a couple emotions that when we're dealing with babies that they have is like angry or at peace. Mm-hmm. And when they're at peace, all is right in the world. But when they're angry, then it's very difficult, especially as an adult, to work on oneself to know, like, okay, this is just a child acting in the only emotion that they know. Mm-hmm. Can you pass me that pacifier? It's in there. But it's the only really emotion that they have, and I think oftentimes as parents, like you. Mm-hmm. Say thank you, Uncle Joseph. So oftentimes as parents, if we do not know how to respond in such a way that does not scare the child and does not make the child scar the child,
some form of trauma.
And I think most of and just to be clear, as human beings, we're going to get frustrated. That's not something that we can get around.
True.
Now our level of frustration, our meter can reduce, in such a way where it's like we don't get frustrated as easily. Mm-hmm. And that's why having this discussion now about communication, about how to effectively communicate, is extremely important. Yes. So one of the things that
she's saying hi to her fans.
Oh yeah, she sent. Yes, wave. So one of the really important elements of communication is being able to understand where someone's coming from. And we have carrots and potatoes on the face.
Oh, that's what's up.
But yeah, anyway. So we gotta fix this. We gotta fix this activity right here.
She's always styling and profiling.
Since her mom is an artist, she will not let her out the house without being presentable on different in front of people. So this is dressed by Daddy. But anyway, yes, please communicate. So what I was trying to get at is that by the more versatile, the more tools we have in our communication skills, the easier it is for us to be able to communicate with those who can't properly communicate. Yes, ma'am. Let me see if you want some milk. And so, oftentimes, as I go through this dad journey, I understand sometimes that these whines is the desire for milk, and lo and behold, I was correct. and also, you know, it takes a level of it takes a level of intuition, because when we communicate, we have to. I mean, we're as spiritual beings having a human experience. We have some level of intuition, and it's really up to us to be able to tap into that intuition and kind of understand. Oh, this is what's happening in this communication, because that goes in line with seeing from someone else's perspective, and of course we shouldn't. Okay. Yes. You good? All right. So having the ability to kind of activate or utilize one's intuition would be very beneficial in communication. So I know using my intuition, knowing when she starts to fidget or starts to kind of move around and make all these types of noises, she's either tired or she's hungry. And so in this case, she's hungry. And it's kind of one of those things that even as adults, we all have our signs when something's going on. Like yesterday, if you don't mind me putting this on blast, when our buddy Joyce came in here and she saw you were hangry, and she said, "Oh, he hasn't eaten yet." That's what she said. That's what she said. But you know, sometimes when
you don't even know what I look like when I'm hangry.
You don't want to see me when I'm hangry.
Like that movie, I'm Gonna Get You Sucker. And the lady was like, "I have cramps."
You know, but we all, like, even when we're tired, we have a certain, certain way subconsciously we communicate.
Yeah. If we're tired or hungry, if we have a lot on our plate, like if we're trying to go somewhere, whether you know that the person just coming in, not in terms of business wise, but just in general, like someone tries to grab your attention, and you're like, I don't have time with this person right now.
Right.
And so sometimes you will act or speak in a way to try to get that person moved along so you can get to where you're trying to go. Yeah, that's just, as human beings, we all have our, as you were pointing out, signs or different ways in which we communicate to try to either, for us to avoid a certain situation to get to what we're trying to get to, or if we're tired or anything of that nature, hungry, hangry, annoyed. That's hungry and annoyed at the same time. Annoyed,
I got you. Okay.
That's pre-hangry.
Pre-hangry. Okay.
Pre-hangry symptoms.
Annoyed.
And so, we all communicate in different ways. In terms of how we're feeling, but as you rightly pointed out, it requires a person who actually has some intuition or some understanding, kind of know what it feels like to be in certain places and so forth, to understand, like, okay, I see what's happening, meaning, okay, this person needs to eat, or this person needs to take a 5-minute break, or
right.
Something of that nature, or let me see if that person needs help, because it seems like they have a lot going on, in terms of what they're trying to handle and deal with. So different levels of stress, that one can experience and so forth. Or in the case of, as you were pointing out, being a parent, to see when the child is tired or hungry, or if you cannot smell the sign, you can tell that perhaps there's something special in that diaper. A special delivery.
You smell what the baby is cooking. Yeah, and that's it's really important because since children are the future, if we do not instill proper communication styles effectively in them, then what is our society's going to look like? What it does today? In shambles.
It's a mess.
I was getting my haircut yesterday, as you all can see the freshness of my haircut. Thanks, Thomas. He was telling me that the youth now, they're so focused on their phones that they have what's called tech neck.
Tech neck.
Tech neck.
Like it's kind of cranked a certain way or so.
Their heads like stuck like this. Every time they lift it up, it goes down.
Oh wow!
And so we see how society is taking our inability to communicate, our so many things away from us that it's starting to make a impact on our physical nature.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's starting to make
Yeah.
And so you have something, and he said this started about a decade ago. He started noticing this with youth.
Probably even longer than that.
Maybe, yeah.
With all the, what is that called? Blackberries that,
Yeah.
sometimes people would have a Blackberry to communicate.
Right.
Older version of a cell phone when texting was coming out and other forms of technology that allows you to text and communicate in that fashion. Yeah. Tech neck.
Right. And so one of the so as he was telling me about this, I was thinking that with the okay, all right, I smell that. With the now this, you see this? This is the indicator. This is sleep.
Mm-hmm.
This is
I see
sleep.
the eyes.
You see the eyes.
Yeah.
You see the eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Starts grabbing for stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Fingers, all this other stuff. Starts grabbing. But with the onslaught of social media, our communication style is becoming more basic, not as involved, or not as what's the best word to use?
Well, just disconnected.
Disconnected.
And we're very distant, even though it may appear that using social media or technology through, in order to communicate, it may seem like we're connecting, but really it just, we're becoming more distant from each other. So when it comes down to effectively and efficiently communicating with another person, if we don't see an emoji, right, or if it's not written or text a certain way,
yeah. If we don't have symbols,
right?
we need symbols.
And isn't that crazy? Like, we need emojis. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are some individuals that require emojis so that they can understand how another person is feeling, right? But just in general, the use of emojis, and yes, they may be fun. Don't get me wrong. There's what is called stickers, I believe, and other pictures and gifts, files. So if it's someone's birthday, you know how there's like a snippet from a movie that shows like two people or more celebrating that person's birthday.
Yes.
We use these to express or to at least better or efficiently articulate how we're excited and feeling. But it's interesting that when we're finally face to face, and you can't see the emojis anymore, and the stickers don't help, all these other things that we're used to using, then the ability to socialize in a healthy way and to connect with others properly, it's like we're so distant, even though we may seem advanced in terms of technology wise, but still communication is lacking. We're lacking that department.
Yeah, and it continues to lack because there's not such an impetus to develop effective communication skills outside of the business world.
Yeah. And even that is business. Meaning it's just a business transaction. I remember someone was sharing with me a conference or a meeting that they had attended, and basically everyone there, although no one was wearing a mask, but it was almost like a masquerade party.
Mm.
They're just presenting themselves in one way to appear as though they got it going on and all these different things, or I know this person, I know that person. And when it comes down to actually really connecting with someone, no one is interested in that aspect at all.
Mm.
It's just business only, not really connecting with another person. And don't get me wrong, maybe there are some people that we don't want to connect with. Right. They're just, maybe we don't, as someone say, mesh or vibe well with another person. And that's a real, scenario or a real situation. But when it comes to just people, I was speaking with Joyce yesterday, and we were kind of just talking about with large corporations and businesses compared to the small mom and pop stores and restaurants, how neighborhoods was like Cheers in one sense. Like everyone knew each other's name, everyone was so close knit that, someone could go to the bakery with certain vegetables or certain fruits and say, can you please make me a pie? Mm-hmm. And then they would, make a pie, whatever like that. And of course they pay and, exchange money. Or, just the fact that I remember when I was in Kansas City and I would visit the River Market right there in Kansas City, Missouri, that is. And I made it a point, I was very intentional to make sure I knew every person that I bought goods from. And even though I no longer live in Kansas City, Missouri, I can go to the River Market produce, and that guy, Robert Wisdom is his name. He was like, hey, Joseph, how's it going? You know what? Here, I'm going to make a special box for you to take and take with you to the monastery. And it's like he knows I don't eat certain things, so he just only puts certain fruits and vegetables in there. And it's like just the communication of just connecting with someone on such a level that for someone to give from the kindness of their heart, like a donation or something like that, it's like we don't see that often, in terms of just close, tight-knit communities. Mm-hmm. Now, don't get me wrong, came across a video the other night. I don't even know how it popped up. When you watch something, you fall asleep and you wake up, you're like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
And so it was talking about in Brooklyn, there is is it called Williamstown? Or there's a certain street, or Jamestown, there's a certain neighborhoods, obviously, in New York, but it was in Brooklyn specifically, and it was like a Jewish community, a Hasidic Jewish community, and how they're so tight and close knit that they simply, shop from their own stores basically, and everyone knows each other, and there isn't any big business like a giant Walmart or another giant store like Costco or Sam's. It's just very small mom and pop stores where everyone in the community knows each other. Mm-hmm. And it seems as though, at least from my opinion, I haven't traveled the world enough, or even what to speak of many of the cities here in the United States, but at least here in this area in Greenwood, that at one point it was of that nature where everyone was very tight and close knit in the Greenwood Archer area. Then, of course, with the massacre and other things that have happened since then, that you don't find so much in terms of families or people. I mean, there are people that do come down to the Greenwood area, don't get me wrong, but in terms of those pictures that I had seen in the museum, well, not the museum, but it was another spot that had pictures where you can see like families, everyone really come together to invest in their community. And just the close knit and everyone, again, communicating and, because when you have such a close knit community, everyone's communicating nicely with each other, bonding, well, I don't want to use the word bonding, but, just really connecting properly, that in that way you can actually help address things such as crime too. Because everyone knows each other's, name and who is connected and associated with who. I mean, you'd be a fool to try to steal from somebody because they already know who you are.
Right.
But that's again just referring to communication and how we can see that play out in neighborhoods and communities in terms of people really coming together much better than what we're doing nowadays.
You mentioned crime. It made me think about if the communities were as tight knit as we saw, or in our parents' age, or their parents' age, as far as like staying close and staying open. If someone was dealing with something very difficult, they can share what their difficulty they're going through, so they don't have to steal anything. They're hard on money or food or something like that.
But and so even that, again, that's another beautiful good point there. But one of the other issues that we see in terms of I've seen, I'll just focus on what I've seen in terms of parents and other family members, is that when in such communities, yes, they're close knit, but then a lot of times the children are not given, the time to share their voice. So the children are not heard, and the children are neglected. And then when the children are just being whipped because the parent is like, or the other members in the community, or the teachers, or the gym teacher is like, you're being rebellious, or you're not paying attention, you're not listening, when they don't realize that child actually may have a specific learning disability, like they're dyslexic. Like, in other words, they're not trying to do something incorrectly, but they're dyslexic, or they have a reading disability, right? So, again, it goes right back to having that intuition and, or at least having some experience so that they can see, okay, wow, instead of us just beating this child or whipping this child because we think that they're just ignoring us or being disobedient, maybe there is a learning disability, or maybe there is something else going on. Maybe there's something happening where, why is the child falling asleep in the classroom? And you come to find out, if the teacher was to investigate, or if someone was to investigate, they'll see, wow, this child is falling asleep in my classroom because one, the child's, maybe the father is a drunk or whatever like that, and is always fighting with the mother in the middle of the night and so forth. So now the children are not able to sleep properly at night, and then they have to obviously get up and go to school, but because they didn't get proper rest, then they're going to fall asleep in the classroom. And then it just creates, this whole cycle where the child gets beat again when the teacher or whoever may be there in the neighborhood is not understanding that there are other things going on. And so a lot of times we run into this other issue of, well, this is what it is this is what it means to be a man, and this is what it looks like. And so a man does not cry, a man does not share whatever difficulty he is going through, because if a man shares, hey, I'm struggling here, or I'm not making enough money, can you help me here, or whatever it may be, then he's not considered to be a man. And so then within society, we're always putting each other down in different ways. This is what a man looks like, or this is what it means to be a woman, all these different things. So in one sense, we're like, I guess the word would be sabotaging ourselves in one sense, where we're not even giving ourselves, I'll put it this way: we're not even creating the space where one, and of course, creating the space where one can share their voice, but then we're not even giving any value to another person for having a voice. So then you have children who grow up not having a voice, or not even knowing that they have a voice, not having the space of being heard. And then now they grow up and they have children. And so then now they don't even have the ears to hear their own child because of what they've experienced in their own youth growing up. Because again, they weren't even given that. So it's this cycle that keeps continuing, on and on. It's unfortunate. But yeah, it's like, yeah, there are so many wonderful things where neighborhoods, seem to be close knit, but then a lot of times seems like when I again look back at even my own family and, what my parents have gone through in their childhood, that a lot of the kids were just neglected at the end of the day. And then again, those who are supposed to be the head of the household, whether the man or the woman, doesn't matter, the mother or the father, even they're neglected. Because again, they don't realize they have a voice and there's no one to even hear them. Now you got mental disorders, right? And so it has snowballed into something. I think it's more than a snowball. It seems more like an avalanche.
Yeah.
Because it's not just one small little person or, one little family. There's so many neighborhoods, so many families. And if we were to if there was a research, done on the whole nation, I'm pretty sure everyone would have something to share or to contribute to point out that, after you, just by you saying that, I realized, no, I didn't even have a voice. Or here I am as a man and I could not share what difficulties I was going through. If I'm feeling stressed, if I'm feeling overwhelmed, just like the one client that we have that had written the book. I haven't gone through all the book, but what is it called? Stories from the Lockbox, or something from the Lockbox. Yeah. It's like, as I'm reading that, and then you start to see all the different things that his father, I think he was in the war, and so all these different things, you start to see that, and you're just like, wow, even the father didn't have a voice. And he was a war veteran as well. I think in the Second World War, different things of that nature. So it's like, what does one do? I'm talking about if we're a parent and now we have a child, right? And, we got all this
baggage.
Yeah, baggage, emotional damage. I'm sorry. It was someone, these comedians. But it's just, we have all this emotional baggage, we have all this burden that we're carrying, and we don't even know how to handle or deal with it. Right. And then, if we seek professional help or a therapist like that, then, if you tell somebody, everyone looking at you like, oh, something must be wrong with you. You must be crazy or, something. So then it's like you can't win. I mean, that's how it seems, It's like every time you do something to better yourself, your community, who we thought is supposed to be supportive and nurturing and encouraging, it's like, well, where's the support? And we're not like an island all on our own or to ourselves. We're social beings, and we're not connecting with another person properly, whether, emotionally. I'm sorry, I got a problem. Emotionally. If we're not connecting with someone emotionally, psychologically, maybe physically, whatever it may be, and we're feeling this neglect, and we're feeling this emptiness, then, all of our relationships, whether with our parents, whether with a spouse or, our children, are, in short, our hearts are so far apart, right? Because we're not properly connecting, that the only thing we will try to do to make up that distance is yell. Because we're so distant.
Yeah.
That's just all you. And man, when we were little kids, I know this is wrong, but I remember some of those kids would get in trouble, right? And so they would go home, you know, they're dragging their feet because they don't want to go home because they know they're about to get whipped. And that front door is wide open in the summertime, and that screen, and you just standing on the sidewalk, you can see in the house, and you see that one kid just getting whipped by their parents, and you hear all that screaming, and you're just like, and then when they come out, you start laughing at them. And it's just like, but we've all been there, and it's like, as kids, we don't think anything of it, but in one sense, it's like another form of like teasing or bullying or you know, in a sense where it's like, wow, you know, how do you ask for help, or where do you begin to ask for help, you know?
Right.
And it's not that the parents are abusing. I'm not referring to abusive parents. I'm just, you know, saying like, just even as a kid, you know, like who do you talk to? You know, who do you connect with? I give a lot of credit to my mom because she grew up in a household where, you know, maybe there's things that she had seen and she didn't like the way certain things were done, so she took it upon herself to break that chain, to break that cycle. And then instead of shooting first and then asking questions later, she took a different approach. Let me ask questions first, and then I'll decide whether or not I need to shoot. So, you know, and so my mom would literally spend time sitting down talking to me, you know, and trying to understand, you know, create that space so I have a voice, you know, and I'm heard, and that my voice does matter, right? But I'm sure if she hadn't have done that, I don't know what I would be doing. You know, I could be just like some of those kids that I've seen growing up who didn't have a voice. And a lot of them, unfortunately, they're doing things like, you know, selling drugs, or, you know, they're not living a successful life. Maybe it's successful in their opinion, you know. Yeah. But if they were aspiring to do something more, they didn't get too far. Because I remember when we were little kids, you know, your teacher asked you, what would you like to be when you grow up? And there were some of us that said a doctor or a lawyer, or engineer, or teacher, or a nurse, or, you know, different professions. But when I look online to see where those kids are, they're behind bars. You know? And I'm just like, wow, this young man wanted to be a doctor. Or this young girl wanted to be the president of the United States, you know, something like that. And they're just behind bars, and you can see that they've got caught up in drugs and other things like that. And you're just like, wow. You know. I mean, I know we cannot solve all the world's problems, you know, because sometimes there's that thought like, man, I wonder if I could have just, was there a clue, you know, could there have been something I could have done? But then at the time, I didn't have any tools.
Right.
And so I could not recognize certain things either.
Yeah.
So that's the other issue. Well, that's not a bad thing. I'm just a little kid, right? I only know what I know, but as a child, not having certain tools and so forth, you know? And so then it makes me think how that much more important it is that parents communicate with their children. Just like, I'll give you a quick example. There's this young lady, I was listening to a meeting a couple of weeks back, and in short, there's a young lady in high school, does dance, cheerleading team, stuff like this, right? And, you know, really good. And so when, like 5 or 6 years prior, when she was about 10 years old, she scored very well on this dance competition, you know, to play a specific role in a ballet or drama of some sort, right? And so she scored higher than all the other dancers. But because of her skin color because it was one of the judges. They said you scored better than everyone else, but because of your skin color, we had to go with someone else.
They said that.
Yeah, and so the child didn't know what that meant. But yeah, you need to get some bigger pecs. So the child really didn't understand what that meant. And so then when you think about it, it's like, oh, the child doesn't even know anything about, discrimination based off of skin complexion. It wasn't that they were being graded on how well they performed. She scored the highest, better than all the other dancers. But again, because of her complexion, being darker than others. So then now as parents, I'm not a parent, but I'm just apparently thinking that is that when we sit down with our children and with the youth to make sure that they have certain tools to be able to recognize certain things if there is an injustice being done unto them. Because otherwise, they would just, she didn't know it. It was painful. Now that she knows what it is, and she looks back, she feels hurt, but it's just like, wow. Like even as children, or should I say just as parents, we have that responsibility to educate our youth on different things, what to look for, not just to throw out a card, just to throw out a card, but there's some people who abuse that, cry wolf.
Right.
It's like, no, it's not that. It's just, when you boil it down, you just have a bad attitude, and you think that everyone's against you when actually really you're your own worst enemy. You have some people like that. So I'm not referring to those individuals. I'm just referring to, someone who, like a child that is just, in one sense you could just say innocent, good natured, well mannered, doing a very good job, a hard worker, but again, because their skin complexion is darker than the other children, that's the only reason why, and that's what the judge tells the child. It's not because you don't know how to perform. You're amazing. You're perfect for the role, but your skin complexion doesn't fit our criteria.
Yeah. That's tough. I wanted to ask you, and if you feel like it's a appropriate time to share your experience. Previously, you mentioned how growing up, having additional support on your ears or hearing. And
I couldn't hear properly. So wax and so forth was not flowing properly from my ears. So everything in the world, in terms of sound-wise, was muffled. You could say orange juice, and for me, it just sounded like boom. So I had to go through speech therapy and the whole thing. And so then there's, obviously other kids that would bully you and make fun of you because you don't pronounce words or enunciate the way that everyone else is able to enunciate. But then also at the same time, when you have someone who, as a parent, did not have a voice when they were a child. And so no one created a space for their voice to be heard and their voice to have value. And then now you're that person's child, and now you can't hear. And so you're behind in one sense in terms of hearing and, English language. So English is almost like a second language, even though it's a first language for me. But then that person not giving or creating a space so your voice is heard. And then when you try to connect with other kids in the community, in the neighborhood, and in school and other places, because again, kids want to play with other kids naturally. But then having to deal with those children because they themselves were also ignored or neglected in one shape or form. I'm just using those words because in one sense, as a child, if you're not really being heard, then there's no other way of describing not being heard. Right. You just ain't being heard. Neglect in one sense. So it's like, and then in the place when you want to connect with that parent, and have a relationship. So it doesn't matter what you say, you try to connect in different ways, whether it's through food. That's why I'm not really huge or a big snacker. Only reason why I was doing all the eating and snacking and stuff like that, because I was trying to connect with somebody. Because that was the only way we could communicate.
Through snacking.
Through snacking. It sounds crazy, but it was just food. I'm just saying, food was a thing. So then when I got to a point, I said, you know what? It doesn't matter how much food I eat. It doesn't matter how much cake, cookies, and ice cream, and pies, and ho-hos, and
Twinkies. Ding dong.
No, don't eat no ding. No ding dong.
Ding dong. You ain't Twinkies. No ding dong.
Ho-ho. From Susie Q.
Susie Q's.
Is that, it doesn't matter how much ice cream and, pies and all these things that you're eating and snacking on, and chips and candy and so forth, that the connection, the communication was not good. I mean, even doing like sports, like I did football and stuff like that. Maybe this person, I can connect with the person, because we have something in common, So you're crying out for attention. You don't know how to articulate everything. You can't get it out because you don't have the English language in one sense, because it's all muffled to you. Eventually I was able to, really get English down really good. I mean, I know it may sound crazy, when I tell someone I didn't really learn how to properly read and write until I was like 25 years old. So keep in mind, I'm a student in a very, prestigious university, and I'm struggling with certain things in terms of communication, just to write a paper, because I don't have certain skills because I was so behind in one sense, right? So, so it becomes very difficult, to connect with another person or so. And then plus, even when I was growing up, there were people who were more interested in, looking at women as objects. So I didn't connect with them either. There were people when I got to college that were more interested in drinking and smoking. I didn't connect with them. And so when there's individuals who, even to this very day, are interested in certain activities, or they're not really with it, meaning, how there's some people that just kind of like, I don't want to use the word lazy, but they're just, they like to live a more of a relaxed life, and they're not really disciplined or anything like that. I'm not able to connect. Not that I'm not cool with everybody, but it's just, I'm not able, as a person, not able to connect with everyone because everyone moves at a different pace, So, or someone may be interested in other things and I'm not really into, certain things. So it's, you can in one sense say that, yeah, there may be some disconnection in one way, shape, or form. But when there are certain individuals that are not interested in just being something other than themselves, I tend to connect well with them. People who are more real with themselves. So growing up, I know I haven't spoken to this guy in some time, but I have his brother's number. I can contact him anytime. It would be as if we never missed a beat. Really close. I've known this family, the Adams family, since we were like 4 or 5 years old.
Adams family.
No, just one day.
Just one day?
But known them for so long, I can contact them, reach out to them. We've known, our families known each other for so long. We went even, like preschool, the kindergarten, grade school, high school, college.
Wow.
Like we were always together for so long. And even when, later on when I got married and so forth, we were still talking on the phone and communicating when I was living back in Michigan, from time to time. So, we don't talk as much or as often, but I point that out is that there are some individuals that I really connect well with because they they're just themselves, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I like the way they think, you know, they look at the world in such a wonderful way, you know, they're just really cool, you know. And it's not that they're not competitive in some way, shape, or form, you know, because I like sports, I like to race, I like to compete, but they just move a little differently than, oh, she looking at you, she giving you that look.
That's what this is. So I'm gonna go back to sleep book or what is I'm tired, thirsty.
Don't push.
Girl, I'm stiffing your back. So stiff back. Man. So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
How do you think that affected you in your later years not being heard in your younger years? That
Yeah.
question makes sense.
Yeah. How does that affect me in the sense that that tied in with different experiences in life where you think that someone actually hears you, but they really aren't hearing you. They're just trying to take what you say and then use it to, you know, manipulate or, you know, be manipulative or whatever like that. So then what it does or what it has done is that it does not allow me to trust so many people. Because again, there's some people who would just may not have your best interest at heart. When you come across enough people like that, you're like, okay, that's why I'll give you the example of the Heisman Trophy some time back. You know, stiff arming, stiff back, stiff arm, you know,
Stiff back.
and a stiff leg.
Stiff leg. It's a stiff leg. You see that? You see it? It's a stiff leg. It's a flexible, stiff leg.
Make sure you don't get kicked. So, you know, you have that aspect, but then also in terms of not being heard, I think, yeah, more in that, in a nutshell, yeah, that kind of sums it up. You know, that I pick my friends like I picked my fruit or something like that, you know.
Oh, okay.
The Ganny told me that when I was a youth or something like that, you know, Erica Badu, something. Pick your friends like you pick your fruit, you know. So I am very, you could say, intentional when it comes to those with whom I associate with. You know, I don't let everyone get so close, and those who are close to me, those are the ones that will know, of course, obviously, that much more about me. But I like whorls on a flower. You know, there's some that's close, and there's some that may not be as close. But it really depends on to what degree I actually connect with that individual. Because there's some people that I may get along nicely with, but just because I get along nicely with them doesn't mean that I keep them close to me. You know, so there's that aspect. But yeah, it just means that I'm very intentional in terms of with whom I share and connect with and relate to.
This will be the last question.
No, it's not. You always ask the question.
Because we kind of went a little over. I went really quickly, actually. But
We started a little bit late too.
yeah,
It wasn't exactly at 10 o'clock that we started.
Yeah.
So.
yeah. But how do you think your perspective would be different if you had known earlier you have a voice?
Mm,
I know it's a hard question because you have to think about it from a couple of different angles, but
you know, because one thing I'll back up and say is this, that even though I wasn't heard in different spaces, just to reiterate and make it very clear that my mom, she was always there and she did listen. And she did create that space for me. I had to realize that that type of, space is not available with every person. If that makes sense. There's some people you're just not going to share that much with anybody.
Right, yeah.
Because their intentions may not be right. But in terms of hearing or knowing to have a voice and so forth, if there were more, if I'm sure, I'll put it this way, and I've thought about this enough as to where I can actually answer that question right away. And so I thought years ago, and still feel the same way, that if I had a healthy, strong communication skills tool, you name it like that, right? That we wouldn't be having this conversation. Meaning we wouldn't even know each other. I wouldn't even be here. I would be, the path that I've taken in my life, probably would have still done some spiritual stuff anyway, because I was always attracted to spiritual Eastern philosophy. But in terms of job-wise, where I'll be working, things I'll be doing, would have been doing something else, somewhere else, like that. So like for example, I would have been able to get through college a little bit faster, right? Would have been able to complete and accomplish certain things in terms of academic wise, and then would have moved in a certain direction. So I probably would have used my degree, and of course my degree probably would have been in environmental science. That was just a backup plan, even though I love those things. But I probably would have been in some other science field, more physics, more, things of that nature. But then at the same time, with the things that I've learned in terms of just communication and of course with the speak of neural linguistic programming, things of that nature, I'm sure I would have been in a different situation, like somewhere else, another state, another city, working in another field, and obviously, living life probably close to what I'm doing. Because like I said, even in my youth, my childhood, I was always interested in Eastern philosophy. But definitely, living and working in different places and doing different things. Who knows, probably have a whole bunch of little Swifties. Running around too, like that. But then at the same time, when I look back, I look at every moment in my life as stepping stones. And so if I had not have had those experiences, then I really wouldn't have all the knowledge and wisdom I have now. And so I'm sure I probably would not, in terms of what I'm able to do and what I think about now, I don't think I would be doing that if I had certain skills then. So I want to say materially advanced, probably been more materially advanced, but then on another level, like a spiritual aspect, probably wouldn't be as advanced from where I'm at now, kind of a thing. So, so that would be some of the changes in swap outs as well. But in terms of relationships, there's still certain individual types I wouldn't get along with anyway. So, so I don't think that would have changed too much. But in terms of, again, work-wise or, what I'll be doing in terms of occupation wise and so forth like that. Where I'll be living, things I would have. I don't know if I would have been a vegetarian at that time. Probably been like healthy person, like healthy eater, like that. Yeah. I don't know if I would have been a full blown vegetarian at that time, but I was still interested in all that stuff anyway. So
right. That was still
so yeah, I still would have been a very healthy person, But I'm not saying that I'm going to go back to eating fried chicken and ribs anytime soon.
To each his own. It's your prerogative.
I have no, you've been laughing too. I have no regrets because I'm actually happy with my diet, for lack of better words, in terms of lifestyle. Because everything that I have now is very supportive and conducive for what I do now.
Yeah.
So I don't have any regrets. I don't have any regrets. I will say that. No regrets, and I'm appreciative for how things have, shaped and turned out and stuff. Because then now, if I hadn't have had those experiences, then I wouldn't be able to, visualize myself in another situation or visualize myself in another person's shoes, different things of that nature. So those things that I've experienced in life allows me to do what I do now.
Okay. That's a good answer. Thank you for...
It's mixed, but yeah.
Putting thoughts into it. All right, so this is our Friday Flex. Thank you so much for your time, and I know our guest was happy to be here with you all today. So stay tuned next week to Communication Part 2. And I don't know if we have our guest next week, but thanks so much. And until next time. Flex.
Flex.
All right.